Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Autism Our Story podcast. Today, I have the opportunity to interview Tracy and Jeannie Perez. They're the parents of Connor, who is a non-speaking young man who communicates through facilitated communication. Today, we're going to be talking all about Connor's autism journey and how he found his voice through facilitated communication. We're going to talk about all the amazing things that Jeannie and Tracy are doing in the autism community to help people around their area and around the autism community. They have a plan to create a sanctuary for autism families to go to and find respite. It's called Hopeland, and it's just amazing, and I cannot wait to talk about it. And also, Jeannie has been working on this amazing diet that has helped her son tremendously, so I cannot wait to get to it. Tracy and Jeannie, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves, and we're going to start from there.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Perez. My son Connor was diagnosed with autism when he was 3. Severe nonverbal autism, very violent, and it was really not to be believed how we lived. And we lived like that many years. And it was 7 years ago, we found a diet that radically changed our lives. And a year and a half before that, we found a method of communication after not communicating with him for 17 years.
Yeah, facilitated communication. And Connor's meltdowns would be 4 or 5 a day, an hour to an hour and a half a piece. He was labeled as by the school system in Florida, by the Department of Education, the head of autism curriculum. And she put it in writing for us, just for the testimony of it, that Connor was, if not the most profoundly affected case of severe autism in her career as a special education teacher, then he was one of them. So I'm Tracy Perez, and I am Connor's stepdad. Actually, his biological father passed away, and I met Connor when he was 10 years old, and so which really is a different dynamic. And at that time, he was full blast with in the old, the way he was. So, but we have a ministry called, we've led worship and pastored churches. We have a ministry called I Am Sent Ministries. And right now we are focusing most of our ministry time, though we do still have a congregation, most of our time on a vision called Hopeland, which is a respite and resource center for families affected by autism. And we just launched just 6 months ago, so we're in the process of establishing that. And you can, we'll put a link out, and you can read more about that at our website, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we go.
Awesome. Amazing. I'm really excited to talk about all of that. And yeah, just wanted to thank you guys again for being willing to share your story. So yeah. I wanted to start, really from the beginning. Please tell us a little bit about Connor's diagnosis, from how you found out how old he was. You did share that he was 3 years old when he was diagnosed.
I'd had 2 other children, and they were 5 and 3 when, 2.5 when Connor was born. I had gone to the pediatrician, and that was the first time I'd ever really heard the word autism. The nurse had said, well, I just want to check with the doctor, because I was just going to go in. It was like she was like a physician's assistant, and she was like, I'm just going to just see if this might be some form of autism. He's just really busy, is what she said. And I thought, I don't know what she's talking about, but whatever it is, I'm sure my kid doesn't have it. And, sure. And so and then the doctor couldn't come, and we were about to move, and she said, you just need to follow up. He got his vaccines, and you just need to follow up when you move to Texas to make sure that, for what I told you. And that was like October, and it was a whole nother 8 months or so before I realized that there really was something going on with him, because I had asked him to get his shoes, and I realized he's not doing it. And yet I knew he could hear, because if there was a great show on TV, he'd run from the other end of the house. And I was like, he should really be doing this right now. So when I contacted the early learning folks out there in Texas, and they they sent me a pamphlet, and there were 21 symptoms for autism on there, and he had 19 out of the 21 symptoms. So that was kind of an overwhelming moment when I realized, wow, they're going to say he has this. And so it would be another, that he was about to turn 3 there. And so it would be another few months before we moved to Florida again. And then he would be tested by a psychologist and be diagnosed at 3 years old. But it was those symptoms that, well, he had also wandered out from the house, and he just wasn't responding to what the other children had at that point. So I was really realizing this is different. This is not what I had dealt with them as a mom.
Yeah, I can relate to that feeling of, realizing that this is what's happening, and going through that sadness, that grief. And I'm wondering, did you feel supported at that time? Did you have any, did they share with you any resources that were helpful?
Well, Connor started at a school there in Texas, and they did, they seemed to, looking back, I mean, I was so clueless at that time. I didn't know anything. It was like a little pre-K program that they had at the elementary school. And he couldn't tolerate it, though. I mean, he would just scream the whole time. It was just like he was so upset, by just being there. He just didn't, at the time. So it wasn't until we moved to Florida that he started with the pre-K program there, and my daughter was able to do it as well. That he did, it did go a little bit better, but even still, it's trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It's like trying to make a professional athlete play in a game with a broken leg. It's really sad that's how it. Yeah. So
For a lot of us autism parents, we're learning about things that actually help our kids be able to thrive, and like other things that we're going to talk about in a little bit, that you're doing with the nutrition, all those things that we're finding out later in life, later down the road in our journeys, that could have been helpful if we had that information earlier in our
Absolutely.
journeys. So, wanted to move on to his communication. You did share that he's doing facilitated communication. At what age did did you guys find out about facilitated communication, and that was a good option for him?
he was 17,
Yeah.
and we were put in touch with a group that were teaching the FC, and we didn't know at the time that his wisdom teeth were coming in, so he was screaming and crying every night at 3 a.m. He would just, it was that was during a time when trips to the ER just don't work. We would just praying and thinking, what do we do, and crying with him, because it was obvious something was so wrong, but we couldn't ever determine what it was. And then a trip to the pediatrician, it was a miracle that we got into this particular pediatrician. And she pulled out a whiteboard and started asking him questions. And it was the first time he'd really started answering questions on a whiteboard. And then she pulled out
She had a video, remember, of FC.
Yes, of the Assistive Express app on an iPad, and a client using it. And Connor just started laughing because he knew he was going to be able to talk to us at that point. And we set an appointment, and it was April 15th of 2016 that we heard his first words with the master trainer, and pretty much turned us into puddles of mush.
Yeah.
Well, he said, just mad, rough autism was the first words that he typed, because it was obvious he was angry. But
Obvious.
And that was her point. Her question to him was like, she also took him through a couple of whiteboard questions, and it was, or options like, was it a teacher? Are you mad, angry, frustrated? He put angry, and was it a teacher, mom, dad, or someone else? And none of these. And so he expressed that it was a teacher. And that's when she said, what did this teacher say or do to make you angry? And that was when she tried him with the FC typing for the first time. And he did type those words, just mad, rough autism. And so we literally just cried for about 10 minutes. I mean, and he got up and walked away from the table. And then he came back and sat down and typed, boys find the sports cool. Boys like nice friends. Nothing I understand. And so then we cried some more. And then he went over to the window and we talked with the trainer and she said, closing thoughts, Connor, and he typed, bloody hands gone at last, because at that time his hands, he would bite his hands till they bled, because
in frustration, in anxiety, he would literally bite
holes in his hands, and then
the tops of his hands,
and then the saliva would just
raw.
make it very swollen and mottled, and it looked terrible. And
so bloody hands gone at last. So Marilyn Chadwick, who was a pioneer in the Rosemary Crossland, is that it? Rosemary Crossley from Australia, who came out with FC, and Connor would sit. And when I came into Connor's life when he was 10, I would just watch, and we always were just thinking, okay, to get through to see this healed, really, quite honestly, to see it as good as it could be, we just didn't look at any other way. But he could type a URL, Nicole, a long URL, and pull up whatever music or whatever video he wanted. He could pull up 2 minutes and 30 seconds into Mozart's Fifth Concerto and listen to it. And then he put our Star Wars movie trailer with the music. And I thought, well, he can type. And, but he couldn't, because that's all eidetic memory. And so when we found, Marilyn Chadwick and the trainer, they explained to us how the eidetic memory, when you slow them down to one finger in front of the keypad, it shifts everything in the hippocampus to another part of the brain where they're able, which is a communicative part of the brain. And so he was 2 and still is, it's better, but even all these years, 9 years later, he still is too emotional really to type with Jeannie. So he's typed with me all these years. I became his main facilitator.
Okay. That's amazing just to think about. You did share that you are his stepdad, and I have interviewed parents, dads and moms, but I was really moved just to know the connection and the connection that you have with Connor, and that you're able to communicate. You are his communication facilitator. So that is just beautiful, and I was really moved when I heard about that.
His biological father passed away very young, and then I had been divorced for a number of years. And when I met Jeannie, and without going into that, we'll keep it on autism, and to know Connor then, it was like, well, I don't know if I want to do this. My life had been pretty quiet, but yeah, at that time, Nicole, though, what Jeannie was saying, he could type 2 or 3 sentences and then get up and have to walk around for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and I'm sure parents watching this really completely understand that. Type another couple, and she would carry the iPad around the yard, chase him around the yard.
It would seem like
I would hold his arm while he would do it, and he'd run around. Well, I don't think he could do it.
They really want to.
Yeah, he couldn't. Well, he couldn't sit still.
But it's just, and it is very difficult. It was especially in the beginning for him to. It seems like to need to assert any needs, or to assert himself to present any needs. It's just such a challenge, and I guess it stems from just not wanting to be a burden at all. And so that we absolutely did stand in the yard sometimes with me holding the iPad
And we were really blessed. We had a supportive community in the sense that I want to say almost 10 nonverbal typers that learned this process together, all living in one area of Jacksonville, south of Jacksonville in Ponte Vedra. So, this community that we formed just got very tight. And so I worked with the trainer, 4 hours a week for 2 years. And now we both did. Yes. And so Jeannie's a facilitator too, just with others. And so that community led us to move into a group home with 6 of these severely not severe nonverbal adults. For 2 years we lived in a group home from March of 2020 to March of 2022, and they all typed. So that was two teenagers and two teenagers. So yes, we had a real supportive community in that, and they are all typing now and all using FC. Spellers wasn't around that we knew of. We didn't really have that option. Yeah. And then that community now, people that are coming up are using spellers, and I can the advantage of a person not having to touch them. But I facilitate Connor just by touching the back of his shoulder now, or just a little bit touching his elbow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Since you just touched on that part where you said you, as his communication partner, you now only touch the back of his shoulder for him to be able to communicate. I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on the people that are, the naysayers that say that facilitated communication isn't even a viable means of communication because you have to, there's a touching. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a devastating, it has devastated progress for so many, especially because it is the motor planning and the proprioception of the individual is distorted through the condition, and it's very sad. And actually, the master trainer that trained us had been a special needs teacher who had been instructed to remove those modalities from any students, and she actually did that, and until she came to realize herself that through one of her students that it was real. Yeah. And so she actually left her career as a teacher to start the business to become a master trainer and facilitation, and so for her it was she would cry just talking about the student that she'd taken the iPads away from. And because here in Florida, you can't even type in school. It is forbidden to do that. And it's just absurd.
With FC. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but for us, Connor being 17 years old and never having spoken, it was more important for us to just get some communication going on, and instead of going through a long period of time with the structural component of the spelling, but we were just catching up on 17 years.
It was rough what happened, and without getting into too much of the politics of it, Nicole, in the early 90s, FC, of course, it's big news for these nonverbal kids and adults to have a voice. And then when we start realizing not only a voice, but they're profoundly intelligent in many ways, and so many things, and just, even among ABA and the whole hierarchy of ABA, so many, people get upset, I guess, anytime doctrine is challenged. And I'm a pastor, I'm an ordained minister. So, this type of thing, it really is a parallel, if you will, without going into it too much. But anytime doctrine or beliefs or paradigms are challenged, people will often fight harder to save a doctrine that could be wrong, or a paradigm that's wrong, than to admit something new. So, but the fact that we didn't have that mindset and we were looking at it, it was obvious. I mean, he said, bloody hands gone at last. We knew he was talking, and then he kept talking. So from there, it was just a matter of let's just do this. Let's let him talk as much as possible. So we trained and trained, but it was 2020, I think, that it became such big news in the early 90s, maybe even as early as 92 or 3. They did some tests and did a big expose on it. And so the typers, and there were a couple anomalies that happened in that without going into it too much, I believe can be explained many ways now that we're learning through some viral podcast,
Yes.
Yes. and things like that, which are very intriguing. But like Jeannie said, we knew it was him typing, and the other parents knew it was their children typing. So it was just a matter. We were always there. The naysayers
are really blocking
progress. The naysayers
would
have to come watch us type, because now most of the typers we have here that are typing pages, Connor types pages now in the morning, depending on how much he wants to say. But he types, I mean, he now, he didn't always, but it's hard to say that I am, when I have my hand on his shoulder on the back like this, or just touching his elbow with a finger or two, which he seems to require, to think that I'm guiding his finger really at this point is pretty hard. It's pretty hard to argue. So we just kind of, for the naysayers, we just, I believe it's all at this point in time, spellers, telepathy tapes, all of these things. And I think the challenge always was, the reason they wanted to fight it so hard is that in the last, we have the whole thing of autism, but to admit how profoundly intelligent our children are, then a whole lot of structures have to start falling.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because
we'll get some controversy going here, Nicole.
I know. But I love your thoughts on that. Yeah. Example, ABA, they would have to, because they do not presume competence. They don't presume that the kids are intelligent. And so, it would have to change all of that and people's egos. And so, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So it's just, so I believe the truth is, the truth will prevail.
And they're going to be the ones to change it.
And we've seen examples. We have one of Connor's teachers early on. This was 8 years ago, maybe even 9 years ago. Early on into this, as he started typing to them, one of them retired from the field
immediately.
I have a dear friend. I have a dear friend I've known since the late 80s, who his business was called Exceptional Consulting, and he consulted the state of Florida for 30 years on the special needs curriculum. And when Connor started typing, he knew that he had gotten it wrong. So those kind of things. But so that, anyway, that's.
Yeah. So now we can get to the questions that I had sent for Connor, his part of this interview. The question would be, how did you feel not being able to communicate all those years before you started spelling?
Yes, and so I'm going to read it. I printed it out, and he typed it this morning. He got on a roll. Before typing, I'm having to be mad all the time, period. Melting down and being really frustrated. Yes, Nicole, I'm raining on everyone's parade in being mad all the time before typing. No easy way to say it, Nicole. Autism is hell. Not autistic anymore. I'm just OCD and very anxious. Being anxious and OCD is my problem. I felt like no one knew we were smart, and I felt helpless because we are really very smart. Felt helpless and hopeless all the time, feeling sad. All the time feeling sold at auction sad. And I asked him what he meant, though I know. He said sold at auction is no one cared about us. It feels like people gave us the short end of the stick. We got really bad school for being retards, and that's his language. I just don't edit him, for being retards. And we got really bad school for being in my lonely classroom. Yes, back to how it felt. We felt like we were freaks. and I'll just go, it's not cloudy anymore, and the world will know how to treat autistic people in the future. Having FC, facilitated communication, and typing is like being among the free and forever people. Before, I was so mad at everyone because no one cared that we are smart, that we are able to be among people. I don't want you to be sad about my life. I want you to be learning that we are in the good place of being healed at Hopeland. And I'll stop there.
Wow.
So, and that's, again, I've had the honor and the life-changing honor is all it is to type. And Jeannie has too, with a lot of nonverbal adults.
Yeah.
And many of them that start even this last week that start fine communication, much older than normal. And they all, once they start talking about mom and dad and get some things out that they really want to get out, they all, every time, really quickly want to say how smart they are. They want everyone to know how smart we are. And I find I've seen it's never how smart I am. Hardly.
Yeah.
It's always how smart we are. So.
Yeah. I just feel like they know that there are others that don't have that opportunity in that moment to talk about it. And so they want to speak for others too, to help them feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. His next question is, what is something that you would like for people to know about you and others like you?
Nicole, we are really, really, really smart. Not telepathy smart. We are bolt of lightning smart. Under mom's diet, I'm another person, not another autistic person. Just not autistic. I'm wanting you to understand that mom and dad in my life have cured autism. I'm not autistic. I just have to read what he typed. That means I'm moving my body. That means in moving my body, I can do anything I want. It means not cloudy in my thinking. It means not the same as sold at auction, sad, talking about a different person. And then he goes on to, one thing he says is, that we're wanting friends and people around us who just treat us normal. Talking baby talk and talking down is in the bad spirit. It's all about being normal. That's a big one.
Yeah.
It's all, yeah.
Back to the how it feels.
Yeah, back to the how it feels. It feels like people gave us the short end of the stick. I read that. It's not cloudy. And then it goes, before I was so mad at everyone because no one cared that we are smart, that we are able to be among people. He keeps going, I'm doing more by talking about autism than anyone else because of mom and her saying, I'm going to be a preacher and I'm going to be healed. Not ever saying, I have to go to school for retards. Mom is name in my heart family, dad, family, and friends. I'm hoping you can do the same for your children as mom and dad did for me. I'm not among the autistic, Nicole. In another year, I'll be talking and not be anxious or OCD. Yes, closing thought is I'm not autistic, not autistic, not autistic. I'm not able to say that enough. And so, yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. I think in his message, he did mention the diet that has helped him be not autistic. I want to get to that.
Yeah,
But
that's what he's talking about. When you ask what he'd like people to know, he gets he gets on a stump and wants to talk about that. He was expressing here, and it was around, is he would like everyone to know how smart he and his friends are. He would like everyone to know, just to treat them normal, even teasing and kidding and what have you, because even patronizing, they are so sensitive and so intelligent that even patronizing, it doesn't work for them, So I have found, and coming in as a stepdad, I mess around with them just like they're age appropriate, and that's what they want. And he wants everybody to know that it's not cloudy anymore, and the world will know how to treat autistic people in the future. Not cloudy is how he describes his brain now and what have you. So he really wants people to know from your questions how smart they are and how much healing he's gotten from the diet that Jeannie introduced 8 years ago.
Amazing. So let's just jump into that because I've been so excited to talk about it. Jeannie,
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about this diet and how you found out and how it has impacted, Connor's life.
Well, it came right on the heels of finding the FC, but what we noticed was, he couldn't really. The FC was great, and because we had some communication, but it was still very hard because for 6 months without being trained, we couldn't talk, and so that is a enormously frustrating period of time because you have the answer, but you can't implement it, and you can't. It's just you have all this anger also that just rises up from finding something that it was there, but we just didn't know, so that it was a process. And the master trainer, she said, this is normal. And a lot of these women, moms, will go through this time of having to process the anger. And so just going through life with the typing and what little we could get, because he couldn't move his body enough to really get stuff out, enough. It was better than nothing, but it was still very limited. And so, so he had a horrible meltdown one day, and I was so upset about it. And I was on my computer and I just put into a YouTube search, autism healed. My son stopped hitting himself out of desperation because I was so upset he'd been hitting himself. And right then, and I do feel like that this was a divine intervention because every result was about the GAPS diet, gut and psychology syndrome diet. And there had been, there was just video after video of these kids that had gone on the diet, and within 2 years they were completely healed and back on a standard American diet, which is not recommended, but that's how healed their gut was from the diet.
In Europe, kids in Europe. Yeah.
Well, there were kids here actually. Some of the videos were from here, but I watched 4 of the videos, and there were many more to watch. And then, but I just in another tab Googled the book, Dr. McBride's book, Gut and Psychology Syndrome, and there was one copy at the Barnes and Noble about 6 blocks from our house. I went and got it, and we started it that day because I just had a knowing in my spirit that this is it. This is what I have been looking for. And I have done that same search about 20 times since then and never got the same results, with all of them the results being that diet. But it was very overwhelming. And I have to say the hardest thing I've ever done in my life was to attempt to do that. We started it that day and I hadn't even read the book. And Dr. McBride is British, and so all her recipes were very bland to our American palates. And my family was looking at me like, you are trying to kill us right now. We cannot eat this. And I can't believe you spent that much money to try to make it. And blah. So I found myself kind of quietly crying in the corner because I didn't want him to say, stop this now. We will not do this. But it was so overwhelming, and there really wasn't. I actually have written a cookbook to kind of help people navigate the American experience, and because it's not just the taste of it, it's also the prep times and that kind of stuff. So 7 weeks in, we do this, and we're doing it hardcore. 100% in the first weeks. And it was 7 weeks in that one morning we wake up at 8 o'clock, which had never happened in 19 years. We would always wake up at 3 o'clock with every light in the house on, the television on, and this little square would appear on our bedroom wall. And I'm like, oh, he's up, there it is. And then he would be inside. He would be outside sometimes in his underwear or less. And, that was how we were living. And then, so for that morning when he actually slept till 8 o'clock and I woke up seeing the light coming in from the window, I was panicked, and I ran to his room, opened the door to see he was breathing. And then I remembered right then that when I had started studying about the GAPS diet, that a lot of moms did it only because they wanted their kids to sleep. And I was like, oh yeah. Okay. So, and it continued. And so we were kind of holding our breath every night. And for 8 days, 12 hours every night, he's sleeping. And it was the beginning of,
For the first time ever. Yeah.
many, many other things that started happening. All of his,
And we slept too.
Yeah.
we were starting to get rest. Yeah. The behavior started to diminish, and 3 days in, he had typed wising up with how to eat. So he noticed a difference within 3 days. And I have to say, me personally, I was pre-diabetic before we started it. And my gut went to a level of peace I'd never known before and within 2 weeks. And because I didn't realize I was in constant pain from the food. I had lived my whole life not knowing that I was in pain.
Wow.
And so it was, I didn't know that my gut was damaged, So it was.
And it's interesting. Connor's pediatrician is very cutting edge down here. And we were just so blessed to have her. But she had mentioned the GAPS diet, and she was with the school of thought for the last 15 years of treating autism as a brain encephalopathy. And so, but they were from gut issues. So she had thrown that word GAPS at us, and it just kind of went over the top of our head. And we did gluten and casein free and dairy free and all that, but GAPS never came up until that search. But and I think I told you, and I could tell this now, is when Jeannie's one of I don't know now, I don't want 30 people maybe in the country certified to coach the GAPS diet under Dr. Natasha McBride, who a Russian neuroscientist who lives in England, who originated this and brought her son out of the diagnosis of autism. And so she's, in Europe, she says, quote unquote, tens of thousands of people coming out of schizophrenia, ADHD, ADD, autism, bipolar disorders. So it's called gut and psychology syndrome diet. And Jeannie was doing her schooling with Dr. McBride while we were living in the community. And I think all your listeners will like this. We've talked about it on our call, Nicole. And I happened to be listening because, we were stuck in this one room where we lived for 2 years. And it was on the fermented foods. And she talked about how our body has a natural, we are created with the ability of toxins enter our bloodstream. Our body shoots out yeast or candida to coat all the vital organs to protect them.
Yeah.
And so primitive man would have got bitten by a snake. Venom hits the bloodstream, all the brain, the lungs, the kidneys, everything, spleen gets coated with yeast to protect it. It goes through the system and out. Well, fast forward to the 80s and 90s, and our kids and our cells are just full of toxins. Mm-hmm. So all that yeast that's going into the body, and so it's when Connor talks about the cloudiness of the brain, I'm not a doctor, but it's that yeast overgrowth, the encephalopathy, the inflammation of the brain from the toxins in the yeast. So the fermented foods and the diet regulate all of that. And as that started happening, he just, because we had done everything else, we did all the therapies that everybody does. We had prayed nonstop. We had fasted. We're in ministry, so we were always, saying the things, doing the things, and that's very important. It was the diet GAPS just revolutionized it, and since that time, we have 2 other people, you'd think maybe more, but 2 other that started when they were in their mid-20s. One that they were having to padlock her door from the outside at night to keep her from attacking the other residents. She had to have a large bodyguard with her during the day due to the outburst and violence. And another large young man with meltdowns. 3 years into the GAPS under Jeannie's supervision, this young lady is living in a garage apartment at home. Still supported, but living in a garage apartment at home. She went to a restaurant with us last Saturday and sat for 3 hours, for about not 3, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours at a table, and nobody would have known she was autistic unless they'd have tried to talk to her.
Wow.
So I like to that's kind of where we were and where we're at now.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I've been excited to talk about it because I just have never heard of it until
Oh,
you
wow.
mentioned it. Yes, never. And I just feel like it's something that would be able to help a lot of autistic
Yeah.
parents. I'm looking into getting started with my son because what you shared were up at 3 and all those things. I'm there right now, not
Mhm.
slept.
Wow.
Well,
So
and yeah. So to start at that age, we have such great hopes. You know, we've started a couple people that were real strict on it, and it is hard. But go ahead, honey.
Yeah, it's not, however hard it is, it's not as hard as living like that, you know, and then there's just all kinds of health benefits for everybody. I mean, so it's just, uh, so when we got started though, I mean, there's a lot of things. It's not just food. There are environmental things like products that you use, hygiene products, and then also one interesting thing is just even having a pet in the home stimulates the immune system.
yeah,
And so just little things, a whole bunch of little things like that that add up to the overall protocol
Yeah.
that brings the healing. And literally within 8 months, we'd had a lock on our gate because he would wander. 8 months, we were able to take the lock off.
wow,
And then just and how we kind of found out that it was really was this that was working. It was 6 months in, and we were at church, and one day he just wanted to sit next behind my parents. So we sat next to my parents, and before anybody noticed, he had reached into her purse and pulled out a roll of Mentos candy and eaten half the roll.
oh my
And
god,
I was like, oh no. And so we got home. By the time we get home, 3 hours later, he is
Hitting
beating
himself.
himself in the
oh,
head, screaming. And I was like, okay, that just, it's
that
terrible,
only made
but
it
it
go back a little.
confirmed.
Wow.
Yeah, yes.
So yeah. So we and so the toxins is what Jeannie's saying, to get the toxins. So this whole thing is about, because the toxins keep stimulating the yeast overgrowth, and that's why our kids, you can almost talk to any parent, you know.
And then stuff in the food is toxic. I mean, most of the standard American diet is a lot of chemicals, a lot of food dyes.
But we were just like everyone else. We thought taking Connor to Krispy Kreme and letting him have 3 dozen and
We
milk
were
because
good
it made him
parents.
happy, you know, hot and
Yeah.
out. And his diet was like probably many of our people listening now, and you can almost guess the diet.
Yeah.
The high starchy chicken nuggets, cheese,
Pizza,
Everything
breads,
big.
peanut
pizza,
butter and jelly.
and because what I shared earlier about the yeast, and this, I'm a layman, but I think it makes good sense. When we went through that first 3 months, we went into a detox because there is a dying off of all the yeast,
Yeah.
and that can be difficult, to say the least. But the body, as yeast dies off, the body literally craves that like a drug to make itself feel normal. So
Yeah.
when they're going after those starchy foods like drug addicts, and so compulsive, it's literally a physiological thing happening where they need to replace
The microbes, the overgrowth
Yeah.
want to maintain the overgrowth.
Yeah.
And so that's why they actually crave those foods. And all of us are that way.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's what the GAPS diet does, is it brings balance to that. And we actually had been on a gluten-free, dairy-free diet for 6 years before that, with just a little bit of improvement, just enough to keep us going. But it really didn't do, it wasn't the dramatic change we saw because all of those gluten-free breads and such convert to sugar. And all those grains convert to sugar. Dana Merritt, our speech therapist, our new speech therapist that I found, she's a visual processing specialist and auditory processing specialist, which I didn't even know there was such a thing. I found her by just researching, after spending so much time in this community and hearing what the kids had to say about their condition and how they can't make their bodies do what they want. And they do things they don't want to do. It sounded to me very much like a stroke victim, as far as if I was trying to find a way to treat the condition with our modern system, that was the only thing I could think of that was even close to try to regain what we had lost, in the development. And
Yeah.
I found her by Googling stroke rehabilitation. And when she saw Connor, she took him through 50 standard diagnostic tests. So she didn't even use all the tests they normally do, because at that time he couldn't point. If you told him, "Hey, point at that," or "Show me where this is," he couldn't do it.
Mhm.
And that was just because that was something that had never developed, because throughout his childhood, he could not even make eye contact with people.
Yeah.
And one of the fascinating things about Dana's research is most children learn to speak by watching their parents' mouth. And Connor not being able to look at anybody's mouth, how can you do it?
Yeah.
So now, at that point, this was 3 years ago that she did those tests, and she came back out of the room and took us aside and said he did not place autistic. He placed with an articulation disorder, visual processing disorder, auditory processing disorder, dyslexia, and a few other disorders. And at the end of her report, she said previously diagnosed with autism.
Wow.
Severe
Yeah.
autism.
And, yeah, and so people may look at that and see Connor now, Nicole, and maybe one day you'll get to meet him, or have him on your podcast talking. Yeah. He can be telling your story, but but what he says is what he was typing: not autistic, not autistic. His body is what that looks like for us is the meltdowns. No more. If they happen, it's because he's just once in a blue moon, because he's so extremely frustrated from the lack of language are being understood. But his body is just in real time. He's just like you or I. The way he moves, the way showers, he cooks for us. He makes smoothies with the blender. He cracks. He does all the. He does everything.
Takes out the trash. Does his own laundry.
The things that he gets. Yeah, he does so much that's why she was able to say that, because it's so much a fit. Autism is the dyspraxia. Or I think we listened to your guest earlier in the month about the apraxia, dyspraxia, and that's that our body doesn't do what we want it to do; it does what we don't want it to do. Well, that part, that autism in Connor is non-existent now.
Wow.
He's just typical. So what we're dealing with is the language and the emotional
and OCD
and OCD and anxiety
about becoming a speaking person. Because imagine if you thought most of your life you never would, and then you understand the responsibilities that come with that, and it's pretty overwhelming. And so we've been working with Dana for 3 years, and he's doing amazing. He articulates beautifully, and he reads really well 1 and 2 syllable words, but then some of the 2 and 3 and 4 syllable, he will say it wrong, and then I will correct him as we work on the speech, and then he can say it perfectly if after hearing it once or looking at me. And some of the more complicated words that have like 3 or 4 different complicated sounds, but he's doing amazing. But he's also just afraid to put it out there. He'll say, I just don't want to feel stupid because it doesn't sound right, or people think I'm a retard or whatever, because he's still
very
processing being talked about that way his whole life, and treated that way in school.
Yeah, and I can imagine that it would take him a little bit of time to, it's like trauma, really, right?
It very much so.
That way. Yeah.
Wow.
Your story is absolutely amazing. Just to know everything that you guys have, done, and how it's changed, his life almost upside down, and you guys are still working on it. It's amazing, and it gives me hope, and I think it'll give a lot of other families hope. A lot of what you're sharing here, I've not heard. It's not something you hear with a lot of, other autism families, like just from sharing that he doesn't qualify as autistic right now is amazing. Because of the diet, you have this amazing healing journey that you have, even all of, I love that you were all on that diet and not just him.
Yeah.
And you're also seeing some changes in yourself, like improvements.
Oh yeah.
So it's amazing. So
Oh
thank you.
I think what was one of the things that was really powerful for him is, and I'm so thankful that we found the FC before we started the diet, was he was able to process it and give us feedback, but also just make proclamations about his healing himself. And once he was in agreement with it, that just catapulted everything. You know, once
yeah.
he was saying, yes, I'm pursuing healing, and I'm gonna fight, you know, because sometimes he would be, it is difficult to be in social situations, because especially people don't understand that the food is that impactful, and they'll hand him a nutty bar and he'll eat it so quick, you know, because mostly he doesn't want to tell a person no. Most of the time he was like, I want to take this because you're being my friend and giving it to me.
Yeah.
But then he'll type and say, please don't let me have bad food,
Yeah.
you know. And so
Yeah, and just for clarity, Nicole, it's the apraxia and the dyspraxia is what it has been. What Dana was testing for is not autistic, which is because Connor was profound of, and we are in the autism community now, and have been for years, but we are really, you know, we have people from all over that, you know, that we are in relationship with and speak to. And the way Connor was, I don't know that I've ever seen, and Jeannie can say, I don't know that I've seen anyone that was as profoundly affected. Just like Ann Bozick said, you know, the career special ed teacher, it just in his body. So that's been healed. But now the OCD and the anxiety is very much, you know, can be really crippling. And so we're seeking wisdom and prayer, you know, for that.
but as he types, you know, it seems to release that, and then he's like, okay, because we went through a week or two with like a month or so ago where he's just wanting to shut the blinds during the day, and we're like, what is that? Why are you doing that? You know, and it's just another thing to have control when he doesn't feel like he has control. But two of the things that I would really like to mention about a process is, one, he used to have this one face that was just like, you know, and now, and we saw his expressions start to come alive over the first 2 years. And he actually, you know, it was 6 months and he was smiling a smile I had never seen. He was had not been able to. And then another thing, you know, because they had a high pain tolerance, and so the whatever it is, all the inflammation or whatever, it numbs the body to different sensation.
Yeah.
And he used to just jump right on a boat or a roller coaster. And then about 4 years in, we decided to go kayaking again because he loved getting on the boat. And we got on a kayak, and he just totally freaked out. He grabbed the side and was like, you know, and because he literally had never felt the volatility of being on the water before. And so he had all this perception that had been numbed with the condition and the food. And so it was just incredible. And that was something that I hadn't expected. And I hadn't heard anybody talk about that.
Everything changed. And just, you know, I just hit back to the communication. He was so limited in what he could communicate before gaps. And then as the body control began to be healed, you can see now. So this is what he typed this morning, just for your questions.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
That's page 1.
Wow.
and I edited out a lot of stuff that was just about mom and dad and how he felt today and breakfast. And so we sit down, and he can do that every day. So as the body healed, he was able to type more. So the emotion started, you know, the being healed, and he could communicate more and what have you. So I just, you know, with this implemented with spellers, they'll just start, you know.
Well, and that's the thing too. The younger you start with the food, the faster the healing comes, you know, and more complete. I mean, many of the kids, I mean, just it's so quick, you know, and then a lot of them will start talking just on their own without even any therapy, you know. So just from the food by itself.
That's amazing. I'm very excited for our other families to hear about this diet, the GAPS diet, and I will be. You'll need to give me all your information because I know a lot of families are going to be coming to get started with you. I will be one of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yay.
yes,
So I'll mention, Nicole, and you can, it's up if you would like to do this or not, but with email address, we are actually uh, putting together now, and it'll be available within 2 weeks, a complete course online. Uh, uh, uh,
But in the meantime,
yeah, well, Jeannie's
I'm
available
yes,
anytime.
I'm a
Yeah,
coach.
yeah, she's a coach, yeah, so she can do
yes,
that. But we're going to make it available at a membership rate and have an online community
yeah.
to be able to learn everything that Jeannie's learned through this process. So
Hmm.
and have that available to everyone, that would like it. So
Absolutely. I feel like that's going to be an amazing resource for autism families.
yes,
Um,
we hope so. Yeah.
yeah. So yes, I wanted to get on to Hopeland. Let's talk about Hopeland and your plans with that. That's another thing I'm very excited about.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, share a little bit about
Mm.
Hopeland.
It literally was a month before we found the typing that we, by a miracle, got into this retreat called Deliver the Dream. And it was all about autism families. And what they wanted to do was to get everybody to work together. And the hope was that we could all stay in touch with each other. And that was what I think they were trying, because you need supports, but it's so hard when you're doing this life, it's so hard to even have time to go to the bathroom, much less communicate and stay in touch with people and all that stuff. So as we were there, Tracy had this vision of that there needs to be a place where families can come and the whole family gets ministered to, not just the individual, because so much therapy and is just focused around the individual and not the whole family, and or even just when people want to help, it's all focused on the individual and not even siblings, because siblings have needs, special needs, because of what they've how things, especially the more severe the situation.
Yeah.
And so he said there needs to be this place. He saw it, a place where families can come and get what they need for rest. And so we didn't even know about the typing or the diet at that point. And it's funny because when he was saying all this, he was saying, and you can do the administration, you're going to be helping. And I was like, I'm not doing any of that. I was like,
Yeah.
I was just so overwhelmed that we didn't have any healing in our lives. I was not thinking I could help anybody else.
Yeah.
And so, but as we've come through this journey now, I absolutely know I can be helping with it. But I was just like, I'm happy he has something, but I'm not saying, I'm not doing that. That's not going to be me.
Yeah.
And so really what families need is a place to go where they can have a break, and so that they can think for a minute, because when you're so putting out fire after fire, you don't have a minute to think about making any lifestyle changes or even have any rest. So just number one, having a respite resource center where families can come and find a place to just rest and start to recover and start to, that's the first thing, because families are so just beaten down by everything they're dealing with, and they just need a place to come where they can rest and actually have a relationship, even, because that's one of the things that I think you probably know, the divorce rate and among autistic families is among the highest. And how can you even work on anything when there's so much chaos going on?
And the more profound the diagnosis is, many parents it's too much trouble to go out in to go to church and try to be in an orderly service, and your child's doing all kind of behaviors. So it was going to be just a respite center, Nicole. I kind of looked at our need, which was, it would really be nice to drop Connor off somewhere and go on a date, or what if we could even go somewhere overnight? Wouldn't that be incredible if we could trust the people, like a camp? So the original vision was just a beautiful place, which would be an ongoing, if you will, camp for them to come And then it has evolved into, because we found typing, we found the diet. Now it'll be that, and we have the place. It's 5 acres here in West Jacksonville. It's beautiful. We're just getting started. So it will be that, but it'll also be a place where families can come from anywhere, stay, and let Jeannie teach them about the diet. And just, as a pastor, and Jeannie's led worship for many years, and we were probably pastoring a church, I think, when we went on that retreat. And there's so many. The world probably doesn't need another church necessarily, but there's just nothing really for this community that is completely faith-based to minister to the whole family, to the PTSD, to the whole family. And so that's, and just have a place. We have people out here now, and I find, I'll make it quick. I find the first thing that happens, their kids are jumping all over the furniture, and it's, oh, I'm sorry. And so we've just made a rule that you can't say I'm sorry out here. You don't have to say that, no matter what. You don't have to say that. So it's called, we asked Connor years ago what he would call this place. And it was just a vision for years, but it would never go away. And even though we were doing different things, we pastoring churches, living being in the group home, this was really the vision that God wanted to be done. And so we asked Connor what he would call it, and he typed Hopeland. He would call it Hopeland. So that's what we call it.
Because families need hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking how fitting, because there's so much hope you're going to give families from just what you've shared here today.
Yeah.
Everything you've been through, your whole story, there's so much hope you're giving others. So I cannot wait for that dream to be a reality.
Yes.
I know you guys are working to make it so, but I just can't. When I was talking to Elizabeth, who connected us, I was telling her Hopeland is going to be our Disney World. We will not need to go to Disney anymore. We'll go to Florida to Hopeland.
Yes. That's it.
Yeah, I feel like that's what families need, really. And I am burnt out. I am tired. So I feel like that is something in moments like this.
Yeah.
Summertime.
Yeah. And just come for a couple weeks, because and just bring the family, and there'll be qualified staff to take care, to watch, just to kind of make sure everything's safe while you just decompress and without any pressure. So, that's what we're doing. And this is a good time. There's some spotlight that's being put on clean food, on autism, so your podcast, things like this that are bringing the truth of presuming competence, and bringing dignity to our kids. And
it's amazing. Yes. And Elizabeth has shared how it's just amazing seeing the kids together, and when they're just together. I would love to see that in person, and I feel like it's a beautiful vision, and I am excited for it.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So I will be sharing all that information in the description for this video.
Yes.
So we can go on to our last question, which is a question that I ask parents after every interview. At the end of the interview, what is something that Connor has taught each of you about life? So, Jeannie.
Well, just dealing with what has happened, has taught me to be more flexible, be flexible, and just give grace to everyone, and to find, each person, grace for people that are misbehaving or seems like they're misbehaving. It's just, and even people that seems like they don't have a good reason. Just it's definitely instilled a level of mercy in me that is, and also just loving people more. It's so cute, because once he started typing, our other kids started to admit that they had blamed him for a lot of things that he didn't do, and he could, because he couldn't
he
talk.
couldn't talk.
And he never. I said, Connor, come on, let's hear the dirt on Mitchell and Aislinn. And he was like, they're a great brother and sister. He would not spill the beans. He was just so kind, and just like, Mitchell, you have a pure heart, and Aislinn, I mean, and they were very good to him. And that's the thing too with them. I mean, they were at a level of maturity that compared to me at their age, just by being around Connor. And I was a person before that would look away from any disabled person because I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know how to deal with it. And I just would look away. And now I walk right to those people, and I'm like, that's the first person I want to talk to now, so I am truly transformed.
Yeah. I'll have to write a book, Nicole, but, and Elizabeth has been, she and Michael have been such an encouragement to us, but I would have to write a book. But right off, I want to say, when I'd come in, when I met Connor, before I ever met Jeannie, I'd come into a church that I'd helped start a few years earlier. And I was coming back just to visit. And as I walked in, there was this young boy, 9-year-old, 10, wrestling a grown man on the floor and just really knocking him around. And I thought, this is just, but for some reason, I just went right up to them and started praying. Well, that young boy stopped knocking him around, stood up and looked right at me.
And grabbed your hands.
And grabbed, right up, and Jeannie was on the platform singing and grabbed my hands, and I didn't know what to think.
At that time, he couldn't make eye contact, so it was a special thing.
And he looked me right in the eye, and I just told him, I said, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And that started our relationship. And I just say that because at that moment, I think I responded well. There have been many times that I haven't, and having been, what he's taught me and what all these kids have taught me is so there's so much. But what Jeannie said, it just keeps coming out, that what looks to be bad behavior, lack of discipline, indifference, and we could just keep adding adjectives to their body, to the way they respond, is just absolutely a lie compared to these huge hearts that once they start spelling and typing and communicating, these huge hearts that won't even tell on their brothers and sisters. Everything is about we. They have a hard time really lying. They can, and they'll manipulate, but they'll come right back real quick.
Yes.
And so these, just these beautifully pure hearts that can appear different than that. And that, he's taught me that I would look beyond, to try to look to the hearts of people, and as a pastor, I would like to say that, I do that all the time. But the truth is, I hadn't. So over the last 15 years with Connor and his friends, he's taught me, to really, to look further at people, before I make judgments. And he's teaching us, they're all teaching us some very profound things spiritually. So I won't go into that now. That could be 10 podcasts.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
Yeah. And I know Kai is the same, because it seems to be just, a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. He's teaching us a lot here too. So I definitely understand. Yeah, they are like our biggest teachers, right? Even though
they are.
And thank you so much for being willing to share your story. Like I said, it is absolutely amazing, and it truly will give hope to anyone who will listen to, because it's given me hope. So I'm so thankful. And please tell Connor I said thank you for him being willing to share his story and answer questions. Things that he's shared here, I know that they will help a lot of people. And I feel like if even parents who have their non-speakers, if they read them to their non-speakers, it will give them hope to know that they can do this too.
Yes. And we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I will share Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll share your information in the description to the video. Like I said, for anybody who wants to reach out to you guys, if you have your social media info, yeah, you can just share it with me and I'll put it in the description to this video.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you so much. Tracy and Jeannie would like to extend an exclusive offer to all my listeners who may be interested in their Autism Recovery monthly membership. It is normally $97, but you can get it for just $47 by going to their website or clicking on the link that is in the description to this video and using code Nicole47 to secure this discounted rate. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can get notified whenever I post new episodes. Until next time.